Lou Carta of the Middletown Health Department, and this is Healthline. Over 50 million adults and 300,000 children have some form of arthritis, and though it's very common, it's not very well understood. In fact, the term arthritis is actually a way of referring to joint pain or joint disease, and there are more than 100 different forms of arthritis and related conditions. Lauren Amendola is here to explain more about arthritis and how it can affect you or somebody you know. Welcome to Healthline. Our guest today is Lauren Amendola. Ms. Amendola is the Executive Director of the Connecticut chapter of the Arthritis Foundation. Lauren, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Lou.
Let's start off with the general question. What is arthritis? Give us a definition, please.
Well, arthritis is much more complex than people really know. I mean, it's no longer just your grandmother's disease. So arthritis is that general term, like you were saying, kind of talking about joint pain and some other inflammation, but it's so much more than that. It's much more complex. We're still trying to learn about it. And with that many different types of arthritis, over 100 different types, it's really kind of hard to pinpoint. But it is the number one cause of disability in America. So 1 in 4 Americans have arthritis. So I think it's a lot more than you would maybe consider, growing old or having stiff joints. It really is affecting people of all ages, genders, and races, even children. And there's some really heavy complications with it as well. And so we want to bring awareness to that.
And that's interesting that you mentioned children. We'll get back to that in a minute, but let's talk about some of the more common forms of arthritis, especially nowadays. You get bombarded with TV commercials about this medication for arthritis and this type of arthritis. Let's talk about the more common ones and what people probably should know about them.
Sure. I would say the most common, well-known type of arthritis is OA, which is osteoarthritis. That's really affecting kind of your bones, and you would see probably as you grow older, a surgeon or an orthopedic. Another very common type of arthritis, actually more common in women, is rheumatoid arthritis. So that's an autoimmune disease. And then some you may not know that fall under the arthritis umbrella are Lyme disease, lupus, because of the way they affect your body and your antibodies are kind of attacking yourself. They all are in that category of arthritis.
And when you say lupus, what do you mean by that for some of the audience that may not know what lupus is?
Lupus is a different type of autoimmune disease where it kind of similar to rheumatoid arthritis, but is affecting your joints and your autoimmune system and also just your body overall. A lot of people have these symptoms and aren't sure what's going on. And a lot of rheumatologists and doctors and practitioners are wondering what's happening, and you go through lots of different tests and you think a lot of different things are happening, and then we can finally pinpoint what it may be if it's within the arthritis family.
Are we finding that arthritis now is becoming more common, or are we just more aware of it?
That's a great question, and I've had that question a lot. I believe we're more aware of it. I think we're talking about it more, and people are really understanding the prevalence of it. So I don't think over the decades it's become more prevalent because of a factor in the world. I think we're just more in tune to what that may mean.
And who is likely or more likely to get it? Is it men, women, or is it just affects everybody? And you had mentioned children earlier, which I think is a surprise to a lot of us, me included. And let's talk about who is more likely at this point to get it, if there is any difference.
So it is more common among women, and it does occur more frequently when you're older. So yes, it will still be your grandmother's disease. And yes, we all may develop OA as we get older, just as bone density changes and our bodies and age change. But that's only a portion of those 54 million. So there are those 300,000 children. That is more than juvenile diabetes affecting children. And when it affects children, a lot of parents don't know, and doctors and pediatricians don't know initially what is going on. And some of them take low-dose chemo and some other really heavy injections and infusions to keep symptoms at bay. So it's pretty heavy stuff.
Is that a lifetime course of treatment?
It varies. Some people will say they go into remission. And so what that means is medical remission would be you're no longer taking medication, but that doesn't mean you don't have arthritis. Your symptoms may be at bay, but sometimes they can come back and sometimes they won't. But that doesn't mean you don't have arthritis. So some people are on those medications for their life.
And are children born with this or something they develop?
Yeah, so you are born with it. Depending on what type of arthritis you have, it could be a genetic factor. A lot of the autoimmune side of arthritis diseases are genetic, but other ones can be developed over time, especially if there was an injury or something else that happened.
And what type of injury would cause arthritis?
Well, so we see a lot in the sports world, especially with knees, joints. And this is as you're getting older, a lot of football players, a lot of sports. But even if you had a severe injury as a child, if that was falling on your knee, just spoke to a parent the other day about some elbow issues. And if it's continuously happening and really causing damage to the joint and bones, something can be formed that way.
So repetitive condition that would cause that. So what are some of the symptoms and signs that would indicate to a parent that a child or an adult that he or she may have arthritis?
Well, inflammation and swelling would be the biggest visual indication that something's wrong, especially in children when you see around wrists, ankles, and knees. And then maybe even as a young child, having pain when crawling, walking, physical activity. So between the pain, inflammation, and swelling, and then there's a little bit of fatigue, especially in the morning, stiffness, being able to really get going. Those are kind of early signs, but that could mean a lot of things to the medical world. So you're going to go through a lot of different tests and questions to figure out what that is.
And what type of tests would you go through? Would it be an MRI or?
Sure. I mean, that certainly could be something they would do depending on how inflamed and if there was an injury. I think the medical world would definitely turn to that. But there are some blood tests that indicate things like RA and some juvenile arthritis types can be done through blood testing. And then there'll be some other testing too to eliminate other things that tells you it could be a form of arthritis.
Now, people with arthritis with treatment, can they lead normal, relatively normal lives, or arthritis also can become very debilitating as well?
Correct. So again, it's this large umbrella and kind of a general term that can mean lots of things. So yes, you can live a long, healthy life. You can still exercise and carry on and walk and whatnot. But then some people have such severe symptoms that even infusions and medications do not work. And they go through so many different treatments and medications. Some people are then put into a wheelchair or have some side effects with their knees or their arms where it's going to affect them for the rest of their lives.
You're listening to Healthline. Our guest today is Lauren Amendola. She is the executive director of the Connecticut chapter of the Arthritis Foundation. Let's talk a little bit about treatment and management. What can people do on their own? You said I think meds is probably one of the courses of action that
yes, of course. I mean, there's lots of different types of medication. So speaking with a rheumatologist or a medical professional can really help you determine what's the best for what type of arthritis you have. But it is really proven to keep on moving. So the Arthritis Foundation has a motto of live yes. So we want people with arthritis to be able to say yes and live yes to all things in their lives. So if that's being able to play on the ground with their grandchildren or go for a walk or be able to wake up and feel good, we want you to be able to say yes. So the biggest part of that is to keep moving. A healthy lifestyle is going to help this. But also, even if you do all those things, you still may be subjected to a life with medication, and it's going to help you. So there's lots of different, avenues you could go.
And we've also heard about the alternative treatments such as medical marijuana. Is that something that is viable?
So the Arthritis Foundation is really proud, and we actually teamed up with the Today Show to come out as the world's first health organization with targeting arthritis to come out with a stance on this. Our initial thing is always speak to a medical professional. Don't discontinue medication and just rely on CBD and other things like that.
And can you just explain the CBD, what that means?
Sure. So CBD as part of the marijuana leaf. It could come in all different forms, such as oil, and where it's really going to alleviate pain. And so it's the part of the leaf which isn't going to give you kind of a different high where people may technically and normally always think of marijuana, but it is part of that leaf that is going to relieve pain. So there are some people who believe in different pills and oils and creams that can alleviate pain, which could help with arthritis. And so the Arthritis Foundation has really teamed up about this. It's a hot topic. It's something that people really want to have an alternative option to medication. Do we want to continue to give injections to ourselves or infusions, or can I do something that's a little bit more natural and healthy but still ease my pain? So we have come out with a statement, an official statement on that, and we're really exploring it. And we want to be able to give our supporters and our families and our patients some other options and help them out in all ways.
And there's also things that people can do. For instance, wear gloves sometimes if they're working out in the yard, things like that. Does that make a difference, how joints are protected, things like that?
Yes, and we do team up with a lot of medical device companies and a lot of different businesses throughout the country on different things that can help you. So if that's a different type of gardening gloves or knee protectors, there are options out there. And that's something else about our Live Yes network that we do with the Arthritis Foundation. We want to connect people with specialists in gardening or specialists in diet and fitness. What else can you do alternatively to help yourself fulfill that life?
And there's also probably the last alternative, which would be surgery.
Yes, and that certainly does happen. And you know, we hear about people getting knee replacements, hip replacements. Even my brother had a hip replacement before the age of 40. So it happens. It's not, again, your grandparents' disease. And I think that's something that shocks people. Even now, you know, working for the Arthritis Foundation and talking to people, they don't realize. But I think we need to talk about it.
How critical is weight management and nutrition? That seems to affect almost everything. Is that true in the case of arthritis as well?
It is. And we have a lot on our website about this. And we do a lot with Ask the Experts, which is live on our website, really asking questions about diet and exercise. And you're right. I think a healthy lifestyle is going to help you in all ways, especially when you have some disease.
Is arthritis, I mentioned at the top of the program, the millions and hundreds of thousands of children and millions of adults, is that just pertinent to our country, or do we see this worldwide?
It definitely is worldwide. These statistics are for America. So 54 million Americans, the 1 in 4. Something we didn't talk about is it affects 1 in 3 veterans. So we really see that population of individuals coming back from duty, really with the heavy equipment up and down, and the activities they do. That's affecting them even more on their joints. But these statistics that we talked about are for Americans. But arthritis isn't stopping in America. It's everywhere. Again, every demographic, age, gender, and race, it's going to affect you. And so we need to do something about it.
And that's my next question. What is being done about it? You talked about all the ongoing treatments, and what about the future? What do you see in the future?
Well, at the Arthritis Foundation, we really are boldly pursuing a cure. So that is our number one focus, is research. So I think naturally, as everyone gets older, it will happen. You know, your bones and joints have been used for so many decades that it just naturally will happen. So that's more of on the OA side of things, that will naturally happen. So we're kind of looking at 2 different facets of this: old age and what it does to your body. Sure, we have the Live Yes Arthritis Network, and that's connecting people online and in person. If you go to arthritis.org, search Connecticut, and all of our upcoming events, Facebook, and contact information will be there.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren Amendola, for being our guest today on Healthline. Healthline is produced by the Community Health Education section of the Middletown Health Department, which is solely responsible for its content. Please join us again next month at this time for another edition of Healthline.